Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Sue Ellam. I'm from Soulfully Connecting, and it's my great pleasure to be interviewing Debs Atkinson and Tom Wanstall today. They're the founders of EarthKin. Now, if anyone's been following the interviews, I've interviewed Debs before, a couple of years ago, with her business of Nature's Message. And I've known the couple for a long time because Tom has actually built the beautiful Soulfully Connecting website. So we've known each other for a few years now. But they're just starting off on a new venture called EarthKin. And today I wanted to interview them to find out all about this, because it's quite an exciting adventure they're about to embark on. So good afternoon to you both. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you,
Sue.
Sue.
Thank you, Sue.
Good. Okay, so the first question, is about who are you, and what qualifications, if that's the right word, do you bring to EarthKin? You know, why is it that you wanted to do this? What is EarthKin? Who are you in relation to that?
Okay.
Well,
wait. Tom and I met in Sri Lanka whilst working at an animal rescue centre. So we already knew that we had that interest in common. But actually, within a very short space of time, we'd discussed, both of us had a very similar dream for the future, which was to work with animals, but particularly with wildlife. And live a very sort of sustainable life, and incorporate that somehow with also doing good work for wildlife and for nature. And what we've both found is that there are so many things going on in this world that are causing issues for both wildlife and nature, and it's really time that we started to step up and get on with that dream and turn it into a reality.
And of course, people are part of nature as well. And over time, certainly in the modern age, there seems to be a tenderness for people to be quite unwell. What with various industries, pollution, dietary issues, and also I've experienced a lot through working as a support worker with various people, and there is a great sense of isolation and loneliness in this world. And I honestly think that animals and wildlife can really help with people finding that and reconnecting back to nature as well. So I think there's a really good balance that can be achieved here with people and wildlife to hopefully bring in a better equilibrium. So, you know, people have a better well-being and a better existence, but also so do the animals and the wildlife, because really at the moment animals and wildlife, they're the ones, and nature, they're the ones getting the rawest deal of everything, and we're hoping that we can just sort of make a small step to try and make a positive change,
bring a bit of balance.
Yeah.
It's really important. I mean, I know I'm not talking about wildlife here, but I've seen kind of videos of when they bring dogs into prisons. You know,
Yes.
You know, and the difference it makes to the prisoners and the dogs. You know, it's a mutual support system. It's just and I love it when they kind of bring horses into hospital rooms when people can't get out. There's just so much connection with animals. And as said, wildlife have got to fend for themselves an awful lot. I mean, on a slightly aside, I'm thinking about zoos, and I know a lot of people put zoos down. I mean, but I think in some ways there might be just kind of people talk about wildlife and being in the wild, but it's a really harsh existence.
Well, nature's quite cruel at times. But nature is very, very good at sustaining a balance when it's not messed around with. And invaded by us human beings. And as human beings, if we allow nature to be what it is and work with it rather than constantly trying to change it and manipulate it and make it bend to our will, then actually we can all live in harmony together. But it's this, well, from my point of view, I have a real bee in my bonnet about the ego, I suppose, of humankind and trying to control nature. Whereas if you work with it, it is so beneficial in so many ways. Interesting what you say about zoos. We've had this conversation backwards and forwards a lot, because from a conservation point of view, you know, that article you were talking about, there's so much decline in population, and in order to try and keep some of these species in existence, then, well, sometimes there's not much choice.
But men have created that problem, haven't they, really?
Sorry, what was that?
Sorry, but people have created the need for zoos, really.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So what we'd like to do, I mean, we want to run our project in the UK. Obviously, we were both born and brought up in the UK, and UK wildlife is very much in our hearts, and all the nature, the trees, you know, all the indigenous trees and things are very important to us. So that's why we both feel this draw to be there and be doing that.
And everything's connected as well. The arrogance of man might think, you know, that we're almost one step removed from nature, that you take away the trees and, well, everybody's going to die. I mean, all these natural systems all across the world, they're all slowly but surely breaking down. So every time a species is wiped out or lost, I look at that as part of humanity's is on its decline, because we're all connected to it. And eventually, when there's nothing else left, you know, I mean, it's already happening with humanity now. I mean, the first time in a long time that the life expectancy of people is starting to get lower now in certain parts of the Western world. Vaccinations, pharmaceuticals, but I think a huge part of it is also the way that the food that we eat, and the whole way that the processes that go into it, pumping it full of antibiotics, when we already know how important antibiotics is, and we've already had the warning signs from industries and governments saying, well, you know, we haven't found another super cure after antibiotics, so eventually when this runs out, you know, we're kind of on our own. So yeah, we're really trying to kind of connect everything together and just do a little bit, bring a little bit of light into it, and into something worthwhile, and in a direction that we hope that the world can kind of follow and move to. Because, I mean, if we don't do it, I mean, all of us, everyone, we're all pretty screwed at some point, sooner or later. I mean, everything that we live in, the whole system is completely unsustainable. I mean, even fractional reserve banking, I mean, it's statistically going to crash at some point. The whole economy is based on the fact that there's an infinite supply of resources on the planet. You know, this can's just being kicked down the road, and whilst this is happening, species are being lost, the environment's being decimated, people are becoming more unhappier as well. So I think for us, we just feel like we want to at least try and do something. Somewhere. Yeah.
And I think it's really important. I saw a really interesting cartoon a few weeks back, and it was there was 3 elements to it. There was one element, and all these people kind of grayed out in the back with love and peace, so that kind of banners, you know. And then you had there's a few people really in very sharp black and white, you know, of hate and fear. and then you had all the cameras and the reporters and things, and they were all focused on the hate and fear, and behind them was all the love and peace, and nobody was paying any
attention to that.
And that is how it seems to be at the moment.
Well, it doesn't make news, does it, really?
No, absolutely.
No, it doesn't at all.
No.
But it's insidious as well, because if you can control the way people, the words and the focus on things, you can control the way people behave as well. I mean, that's why everything that you see on television, they don't talk about piecing for peace or something for something. It's always about fighting. You've got to fight it and anti-something it. Well, why don't we strive towards what we want to do rather
promoting
than
peace and promoting good things, and balance.
Yeah, you notice, I mean, I don't watch the news or anything, but when you're online a lot, you can't miss certain elements. And there's always somebody slamming somebody else in criticism. And it's just the words, as you said, that he used.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
And I think, when I first started Soulfully Connecting, I might have said this to you already, but, it was like the world was going to hell in a handbasket. It really, but I've been on this kind of journey for about 7 years now. And I've kind of been reading and researching and looking, and I was amazed. There's millions of people out there doing fantastic work. They're doing their little bit in order to help, but nobody hears about them.
No.
And I think this is why people are getting angry and despondent and feeling that they haven't got any control, is because they don't know what's happening. They only see.
Absolutely. You're so right.
Yeah, but also a lot of the things that people are being shown and seeing, particularly on the media, seem so huge that there's always that feeling of, well, what can I do? What can one little person do to do something opposed to all of those things? And that's really what we want to do, and like lots and lots and lots of other people are doing, just to switch a light on and do something. If every person, instead of thinking, I can't possibly do anything, I can't change the world, I can't change the way things are, if every one of those people just did one little thing, then of course a change can happen. It's a ripple effect, isn't it?
Of course.
Absolutely.
I remember being told a little tale when we were in Sri Lanka, and there was, I think, thousands and thousands of starfish washed up on the beach, and there was this one person, this old man down on the beach, who was one at a time picking them up and trying to throw them back in the sea. And someone said to him, look, there's just too many here. What's the point? You can't save them all. What kind of difference are you really going to make? And then he pointed at each one individually and said, that one's made a difference. That one it's made a difference to. It doesn't matter how big or small it is, as long as it can just affect one thing, one being.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's difficult for people because I know, I used to be doing, and I do a lot of a 9 to 5, although I'm trying to kind of get out of it. But I think people feel like they can get to the end of towards much further into their life, and they can feel like they've been lied to. Everything comes once you've got your education. Once you've got your education, everything comes once you've got your decent job. Once you've got your decent job, you've got to wait till you got your pension, and that's basically almost your life over. And then at the end of it, you're kind of left with nothing. You feel like you've been lied to. You feel like you've been robbed of your passion and your time and your focus in exchange to just helping the money pushers push money around, which all ends up going to a few people anyway.
That's right. It's interesting because I watch docuseries. I've watched quite a lot of them. I've been watching like the Food Revolution for about 6 or 7 years. I think I only missed one of them. It's yearly every year they do it. And then I watched The Truth About Cancer and The Truth About Vaccines, and they were kind of coming up like one a year. But this year, there has been so many You've had like diabetes, cancer, autoimmune, aging. You know, they've had so many different ones, and it's like there is a revolution going, and it's like people have said, you know, because we've all heard the holistic doctors dying and under suspicious circumstances.
Yeah,
I mean, and I think there's a lot of people that got out of it because they were frightened in case that they were being targeted. I mean, I don't know the whole truth about anything, so I can't say anything more than that. But the fact is, a lot of them had kind of died. And I think people were getting frightened. It's like now people are saying maybe it's safety in numbers. If we get so much information out there all at once, you know, we're all supporting each other, and bring the truth out about different things. It's not just about kind of medicine. It's about the food you eat, the chemicals, you know, and all that sort of thing. So there's more focus on what people can do to help their own lives, and it is about reaching the individuals, and you know, just that even if we change, I know it's kind of a cliche, but if you change one person's life, you've done some good.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Yeah. And what we're really looking to do is I mean, nature needs a helping hand in whatever way that we can do that. I mean, what our ideal goal is to perhaps have some farmland that has been used for farming, and you know, when farming, particularly sort of intensive farming, there's ditches put in to avoid boggy areas, or the hedges are stripped out and trees are removed, and obviously the land gets covered in chemicals and things. So what we'd really like is to be able to reverse that and plant hedging, get rid of the ditches, let the land become what it should be, to enable nature to just do its own thing. Nature's perfectly capable of sorting itself out. I mean, you only have to look at areas that have been concreted, and you're always going to get a dandelion popping up through. Nature's pretty smart. It will sort itself out. It just needs to be given a chance to do that.
How long will it take? How long does it take to get chemicals out of?
I'm not 100% sure. I think I'd have to check that. Is that? I mean, I think it's probably about 10 years before. But I've got something lurking in my mind that the Soil Association recommend, but I'm not going to make it up. I can't actually remember for sure.
Because it's just popped into my mind, and I'm not an expert on plants and anything at all. This question, maybe planting certain plants could draw.
Absolutely, yeah, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, and a big candidate for that is hemp. Which unfortunately is illegal.
Yeah, but that's a great cleanser. I remember reading a while ago that they wanted to plant hemp in areas where there'd been nuclear radiation, because it cleanses not only does it cleanse the soil, but it cleanses the air as well.
Oh, interesting! So, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh.
But there are some good plants for doing that you grow and plough back in, and that helps to cleanse things.
Yeah, but I mean, by making it for wildlife, you wouldn't have as difficult a job as somebody coming in wanting to farm in order to grow fruit and vegetables and stuff like that. If you're reversing it back to nature, then the chemicals will deal with them. The plants will deal with them.
Yeah. Absolutely. It will gradually bring back that balance. I mean, we want to have. We've got so many things that we want to do with this, and trying to sort of pin that down, to make it obvious and clear. It's not very easy because there is so much to it. But over time, we would very much like to grow. I mean, obviously, we want to grow for ourselves because we want to be able to feed ourselves. But we want this place to be shared with others, particularly others that are struggling in any way, whether it's because they're homeless or because they've just come out of the care system and they're not quite sure where to go next or what to do next. We want it to be a place where people can come and stay for a while and help them to get on their feet and learn really basic things like how to grow your own food and how to make a chair out of hazel, which Tom does very well.
And to bring it into the education system as well.
Absolutely.
Get school kids out there
really basic things, and working and living in harmony with nature rather than against it, working with it. And the benefits from that. I used to live on a farm. I rented a cottage on a lovely farm, proper working farm, and they used to have school children come from London to spend a day at the farm, and quite often 90% of those children had no idea where their food comes from. Absolutely no correlation at all in their minds.
Most people don't realise that coconuts have husks.
No, well, that wouldn't surprise me. Don't they come in a carton?
Apparently not, no. And they don't come in two halves. And they're very difficult to actually get into.
You've brought a memory back from when I was a child. My dad was a diplomat, and we lived in Singapore when I was about 8-9 years old. I think between 8 and 10 we were out there. And we lived in this compound, and they had coconut trees. And every time you heard a thud, everybody would run out to try and grab the coconut. And I remember being at a friend's house trying to break this coconut, and I tried it in the sink, and it went right the way through the sink. So I was kind of banned, I think, from their house for a while. But yeah, very hard husks, those coconuts.
They're amazing things, coconuts. Really incredible. They've got so many uses.
Yeah.
But don't grow quite so well in the UK, unfortunately.
No, we haven't quite got the climate, have we? but yeah, it's I remember when I was a child, I just had childhood. You didn't think about things. And what I find, I didn't think about the planet, the earth. You just lived your life. You were a child and you did what children do. And it seems like the decline has been quite recent. And it's kind of speeding up because now, I mean, children are becoming so environmentally aware. You're getting 11-year-olds talking about kind of climate change or pollution or things, and it's like they're losing their childhood because they're worried about the future of the planet. And that's what I find, though it's admirable what they're doing, I think it's quite sad the fact that they feel they have to be doing it.
Well, the children of that age are worrying. Like you say, childhood should be pretty carefree and, where you're exploring and not focusing on something that's concerning and worrying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good that generation are so much more aware of what's going on and looking to make changes. But yeah, also not a good sign of the times as well.
Yeah, and especially, I was saying something, there's a quote, I saw something about education. It's not that people aren't educated, it's that some are educated to a certain degree of getting a belief system, but they're not educated enough to question it.
Right, yeah.
And I think that's an interesting one, because I've come across a number of times over my few years doing Soulfully Connecting that people have a certain idea and it's like you're trying to take their children away from them, the way they defend that idea, and then they're not prepared to change it or adjust it, it's like, I'm right, you're wrong. There's no middle ground. And when anybody's got that kind of fixation on something, then you can't move from there. There can't be any change, and it's not necessarily what we would term a negative fixation. Even a good fixation, you know, it can become quite single-minded, and with that you kind of the people, you can't teach anybody, because they will be like repelled by your inflexibility. So it's got to be give and take on both sides. So you know, the negative and the positive can kind of merge, and the negative becomes more positive and the positive more negative. But when people get on their bandwagon or their, you know, soapbox, it's difficult because I think the other party feel attacked or demoralized, or they're treated as though they're stupid because they don't think this way. And then, you know,
that actually then just produces the opposite effect to what that person's trying to get across. So there has to be understanding.
But I think it's, you know, will you be doing workshops as well? Because I know that.
Yes,
we hope to.
That's our plan. I mean, well, initially, what we'd like to focus on is getting the land to a stage where it's becoming its own ecosystem, and we're encouraging in wildlife species, particularly those that are in decline. We'd also like to offer that space for any animals that are have perhaps been injured and are being rehabilitated, that need a safe environment to be released into, even things that are endangered and being reintroduced. I know they're reintroducing beavers now into the UK, which is fantastic. So yeah, that's a little bit of a dream aside for me, to have a river and be able to you know, be the caretaker of a place where that sort of thing's happening. Sorry.
That's right.
Sorry.
No, you go. I was going to say, any buildings that we'd need to put up as well, we want to do eco-friendly ones. So we'd be looking at building an earthship style building, using recyclable materials, but also trying to use that to gauge a lot of interest as well from people who are interested in that sort of thing as well. So they would be able to participate, and just maybe it might open some more doors into all the other different aspects.
So workshops on you know, on learning really sort of basic skills like that, like, you know, building your own eco structure. I mean, I think that sort of thing's invaluable for people to know. And you know, we didn't know. We're at the moment we're living in our little cottage in Brittany, which was kind of falling down quite a lot when we moved in, and neither Tom nor I had a clue about building.
Still don't.
Yeah.
I do really.
Well, still a lot of it's flying by the seat of our pants, isn't it? But you just get on and do it, and have learned an awful lot. But it's surprising how many people don't learn those kind of really basic skills, because that's just not taught. That's not in the education system. So
a sense of community as well, though. I mean, in previous work that I've done, I've worked with people with quite severe social anxiety issues, and they in many cases they so much just want to be a part of something, but they're just so frightened to do it. And you have to put the right environmental conditions there so that they can flourish in them. And when you see that, and then, you know, it start bringing out the best in them, and making them feel more positive and confident as well. It's fantastic. So that, there's so many things we're trying to do with EarthKin, that we think it can benefit, well, many people, many animals.
Absolutely.
The environment, nature,
each
everything.
one benefits the other, doesn't it? I mean, our little slogan is helping nature to nurture, because we want to help nature to be what it is so that it can do what it does.
Yeah.
Which is
and save us all.
Yeah.
Because
sorry, go on.
It's so it's gone out of my head, what I was going to say. Just
okay. It'll
my
come
grandma
back.
used to say it meant it was a lie, but I promise you it wasn't. So what are the challenges you face?
Well,
that's a good one.
Financial, really, of course, is the first one. So our plan, we're not far off now, finishing the work on our little cottage here. So we'll then be selling that. But obviously, wherever we go to, wherever this land is, that we find to do this, we're going to need to live there. So the money that we get from selling our cottage here, we'll need to use to build something, whether it's a log cabin or a little earth ship, some kind of eco structure, plus building outbuildings for, I mean, I'd really like to focus quite a lot on hedgehogs and perhaps have a little hedgehog hospital. So we're going to need, we're either going to need some wonderful person to just say, oh, I like what they're doing here, have lots of land, or to fundraise to get the money to buy the land. We've launched our EarthKin website, and we will be launching a crowdfunding campaign to go alongside that to try and get some funds in. But yeah, that's really the challenge at the moment, is working out how we're going to do that,
and also pooling in the right people who want to get involved in it as well. You know, people who have experience with, for example, building earth ships, people who have the passion and experience with wanting to help wildlife,
with conservation.
So we're really kind of just trying to draw in all the people for, you know, mutual benefit, so that,
and hoping to perhaps get the government involved in the case of helping people that you know, are homeless and need some kind of help that we would be able to offer, even if it is just the, you know, the basic skills, teaching basic life skills to a community.
I've remembered what I was going to say. It was like, it's very much, you're very much on trend, and also very much I think it's happening at the right time, because I mean, I watch the tiny house movement, and I've watched how that is expanded, and people building their own places to have less impact on the environment. So there's an awful lot of awareness now, you know, and more people want to be involved in that. And I know a lot of them are kind of in Australia, New Zealand, and the States, but they will be, you know, but the UK, I'm sure, has its own kind of movement that's growing.
Yes,
so,
yeah, absolutely.
So you might just end up attracting people who've got their own little tiny houses that can come and park them, so you don't actually have to build, you know, or they live out their vans, or they've got, you know, a kind of a furniture van they've kind of changed. You know, you could end up with people bringing their own accommodation with them.
Absolutely, and just wanting to be somewhere where they can connect with other people and have that kind of community. We do all need that, and for a long time, I think people were very encouraged to be isolated in lots of ways, but to be kind of selfish, I suppose, and to push away your neighbour, and that sense of community that is still very much there, and you always see that in people whenever actually there's any kind of disaster that happens. That sense of community is still in people, which is so heartening. But wouldn't it be nice if it was there, not because there was a disaster, just because that was really important and needed to be there to help one another.
Well, I think it can be like that.
Yeah, I think so.
But I also think a lot of things are going to need to change.
Yeah, I mean, we're not living in some cloud cuckoo land, you know.
No, of
we're
course.
Not talking about some sort of utopian thing and the whole world has to be like this. We're quite realistic. But I just think it's really important to do something.
Absolutely, yeah, I couldn't agree more.
It's all down to kindness, isn't it? And again, going back to the fact that all the cameras and media is focused towards the hate, the fear, and people kind of denigrating others, and you know, and that's a modus operandi at the moment, and that's why, you know. But kindness, that is is so powerful.
It's very important, isn't it? Because lots of other things that you might think throughout your life are so important and there's such meaning to them, they all just fall away at the end. You know, when you realize it. When you realize it, like, I look at life a bit like, well, my old life, like a game of Monopoly. I mean, you must start building up all your properties and your lists of stuff that you own, and you got, I need an extra garage to fill it up with all the stuff that I've bought, and then I've got houses and hotels. But the biggest lesson at the end is it's all got to go back in the box.
Yeah.
Nothing is kept. You don't keep any of it. You don't even keep your body. Everything's transient.
Yeah.
So for me personally, when I philosophized a lot about this, I kind of took away the things that didn't mean anything to me at the end of it, and I was left with things like you said, kindness. And if you want to live in a world that's kind, be kind. It is really, really simple. Everybody's got the moral compass, but we're conditioned and we're promoted to behave in a selfish way. It's just the system that we live in. So given that that's always been the way it is, I find it amazing sometimes that there is kindness out there and people are nice.
Yeah, because and that fundamental compassion is there.
Absolutely.
It can be well hidden sometimes, but it is generally there.
Yeah. I have a friend who's just lost her home and virtually everything she owns from the fire in Paradise, California.
Oh,
and she said what's really been amazing is the kindness of people. And when you see the news reports on people rescuing the animals and rescuing, and helping each other, and as you said, if we could do that every day. But I think social media, I love social media, don't get me wrong, and I couldn't run my business without it. It wouldn't be possible, but it can separate people as much as it can bring people together. So it's really taking time away and finding your own moral compass, and that is best done in nature, when you can just wander around through the trees. I remember I visited my friends in San Francisco, and I visited Muir Woods, and all these giant trees, and you just walked through them and you could hear a pin drop. It was just incredible. Now, if everybody could do that on a regular basis, then you'd find that you weren't the most important thing in the universe. That
absolutely
you're just a part of the whole. And I think where some people have got into their heads that they're more important than everybody else, and that's where the problem starts, and then that's where kindness kind of disappears.
And the act of being unkind, well, they're harming themselves as well, whether or not they admit it.
They get more stressed, don't they, because they don't get the support that people would willingly give to people that are supporting. They get willing support, but when people don't support others, then you find everyone's kind of resistant to supporting them. They'll only do it begrudgingly if they absolutely have to. It's not free flowing, and it doesn't come with the right energy anyway.
Yes,
under duress. But everybody's on their own life journeys. So what are the joys that you get from your proposed path and the path you're on at the moment?
Well, one of the biggest things for me is I was really lucky in my childhood, and I did grow up mostly on farms, but really spent so much time in nature, and it was just normal, completely normal. So I want the children of the future, my family members, Tom's family members that have got children, and I want them to be able to experience that. I want children all over the world to be able to experience that, not just to read about it, oh, this is what it was like once upon a time, to actually be able to sit in those woods and look at those trees and think, wow, look how big and amazing that tree is. Listen to that bird song.
Yeah.
That for me, that's the joy I get from it. Does make you feel humble, nature, because it is so enormous, and it does put you in your place. It does put things into perspective, and it's a good balancer, and we all need that. And so for me, the joy of doing this is to bring that to other people and to ensure that stays for the future.
Yeah.
So that's my
yeah. Pretty much said exactly the same as what I want to do as well. I mean, isn't it wonderful the way we're designed so that you feel good when you try to do good things? You know, it's kind of, I suppose, in a way, a reward system to encourage you to do good things, and it's just fantastic that you can feel good for doing good as well. So I really want to connect with people, and I want to, as well as animals, of course. But I want to try and, I suppose, do the best that I can for them and bring the best out in them as well.
Yeah. Well, you've had periods of your life where you felt quite sort of hopeless.
Of course.
And you've worked with people that have felt.
Of course. Yeah.
So to do something that helps bring that hope back to people.
Yeah.
And you know, even if that's just doing it by example, you know, showing people what's possible, how it is possible to live in a simple way.
I'm very hopeful for the future, to be honest. And I know everything looks really bad at the moment, but I really do believe that it gets worse before it gets better. And people have to realize. Yeah, people just have to realize exactly how bad it can get. And I think people have forgotten exactly how bad it can get. And now they're being shown. And I've noticed, you know, over the recent years, there's more people waking up to the fact that this isn't the world we want to live in. Absolutely.
And you can't stop that. I don't think it's the mass awakening. It's happening already. I've watched it over the last 10 years. And the amount of people that are just aware of things now is incredible. But as people are waking up, of course, there are those that don't want people to be awake. So you're hearing things like fake news, unless it's from our nicely packaged propaganda machine. Everything else is fake. So exciting times.
But also I think that with all this stuff that's going on at the moment, and as you say, people are becoming much more aware of what's going on in the world, I think that's starting to make people crave simplicity, and make people realise what's truly important, which is the kindness and the love and all the hippy dippy things that the media ignores.
Tarnished.
Yeah, they are the important things.
Of course.
And it's quite simple, really, going back to that simplicity.
Yeah.
Rather than replacing those things with material things, which is, of course, that cycle that the world's been through.
Well, and then now, as you know, what with austerity, it's not working anyway. It doesn't matter if you've got a full-time job; you've still barely got enough money to survive anyway. Are you supposed to live out your entire life doing that and have completely nothing at the end of it? And then when, you know, your company will probably just replace you within a second if they can anyway, with someone who'll do it cheaper. That's basic, economics. So there's a lot more out there.
I know, and you know, the schooling. There's so many more people doing homeschooling. You know,
Yes,
that's really good.
Yeah, and the fact is, you know, when I was at school, you had to go to dictionaries. Now you just click a button or do Google or any alternative, and you can find out so much information. So,
which is really handy when you're trying to rebuild a house.
yeah, right.
Quick, Google it.
What do I do with the roof?
Yeah, there must be a YouTube for this problem.
Oh, it's supposed to be on top of the wall.
Got good reception up there.
Yeah.
But you're so right, Sue. It is. People are waking up now, and this, I think, is the most incredible, exciting time to be alive, because I don't have 100% faith anymore in that. I think the human experience is actually going to make it. I used to believe that, just absolutely, there was just no doubt. But now I don't necessarily think that's true. But I also think it's going to be incredibly exciting one way or another, because we're coming up to a point of evolution where we're either going to make it or we're going to just go down. And that isn't too far away now. I mean, you just need to look, obviously, the natural systems of the world. I mean, all systems of the world, economics, everything is slowly but surely breaking down and coming to, you know, to a grinding halt. And given that everything is based upon oil as well, which we've already gone past the peak oil curve, and we're on the decline now. So, yeah, exciting times.
Well, that's where nature can come in, because we can use, all of us can use natural resources to look after ourselves and keep ourselves warm, and
of course,
but without being greedy about it, without someone monopolizing it. There is enough for everybody.
Yeah,
there is more than enough for everybody.
Yeah. But what it's really showing, I think, now is people's extreme arrogance and thinking that the world needs them. You know, the fact that, God, I saw this a while back. The fact that you know, they said, what if all human race died out? Everything would flourish. You know, nature would absolutely boom and flourish. You know, we are not necessary on this planet. You know, and not enough people kind of realize that the ego.
No, we're not at all, and nature would be so much better off.
Yeah, well, we are still part of it, though.
Well, we're part of nature.
Everyone has its purpose.
We're living in balance with it, not when we're just constantly egotistically trying to destroy it all.
but it's a difference. I think when we were talking earlier about I was talking about a program I watched where sometimes it's a vet program, Vet Ranch, for anybody that wants to check it out. But it's a team of vets. I think they're in Texas, and they deal with the medical issues of animals. And when an animal goes in with a limb that needs to be amputated, you know, the animal, the dog or cat or whatever, they don't think about, oh my goodness, I've lost a limb, you know, and there's a problem. They're scooting around as quickly as they did on 4 legs as they, you know, with only 3. So I think it's the mind, the mind that it gets in the way.
Yeah, well, it adapts, doesn't it? I found a brilliant tree last year. I wrote a blog about it, actually, because it really amazed me. This tree had grown out of a really unstable bank and had obviously at some point just fallen over. And it hadn't just died. It just thought, oh, well. And it grew 3 trunks coming out of the main trunk that was lying flat on the ground. It just grew 3 new trunks out of it. I'll just do it this way then. It just adapts.
Absolutely.
It's brilliant.
It is, and that's what we need to do as people. We need to adapt, and I think need to realize that nature is actually stronger than we are, and we've only got a short lifespan of being able to try and control it. But I think nature now is showing very clearly that it can't really be controlled. We have to work with it, you know. because
Absolutely.
otherwise it's going to.
Whichever way we look at it, we live in a dictatorship in many ways. We're dictated by nature. I mean, that's just the way it is. But we're part of it.
Yeah,
so
that's kind of fine by me.
Yeah, it's not like some big person waving their finger saying, "No, we're going to make you poorer because you have more champagne breakfasts."
I don't like champagne. I don't know about you, but I give them a miss. But it's been wonderful talking to you, and I'm a great believer that when you're trying to do right, the universe comes in to support you. So I'm sure that the right land and everything will just fall into place when the time is right. It's just learning to be patient, isn't it? So
Well, nature's a good teacher of that as well, of course.
Yeah. That was one of my challenges, patience.
Yes, I often think that when I'm trying to grow vegetables. Why hasn't it grown yet?
You only put it in last week. What do you expect?
I'll just keep digging it up and checking it is growing.
But we do that. You just brought me back to another analogy. There's like we tend to interfere, don't we? And I think I've read it somewhere. But it's like you go with a friend to a restaurant, and you can't make up your mind what you want. Do I want meat, or do I want fish, or do I want a salad or omelette or whatever? And eventually you decide maybe you want an omelette, but instead of sitting, and so the waiter comes and takes your order, with you not being sure what you want. Anyway, eventually you get the order out. But instead of sitting at the table and talking to your friend, having a nice conversation, we follow the waiter to make sure that he's given the right instructions to the chef. And then we check the chef, make sure that he's put enough eggs in or whatever. And the chef gets nervous because you're breathing down his neck and he drops it. And, eventually, then you follow and make sure. And so you follow the waiter back to the table when it's delivered. And it's not as nice as it would have been, and you've missed a perfectly good conversation.
Yes, I understand. Yeah,
and that is kind of what a lot of people do, isn't it? You don't just put it out to the universe and say, "Well, this is what I'm after. This is what I need to do to fulfill my purpose, to fulfill my life purpose." Because that's when it's something as big as what you're doing, it's a life purpose. It's something that you were born.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we believe. Yeah.
So rather than just sending that out to the universe, say, give me the tools I need to fulfill my life purpose, we then start thinking, well, how are we going to get it? What do we have to do to get it?
Yeah.
Whereas all we
rather
have
than just hand it over. And I mean, in a way, we're quite lucky because we have done that now. We have put our intention out by. Tom's built the lovely website, and we're talking to you about it. We're talking to as many people as possible, and our aim is that as many people as possible will see that and will share our information, and somebody somewhere, the right people, will see it. But in the meantime, we actually haven't really got time to worry too much about the house because we've got a septic tank to install.
But fun times.
Oh yes, we know how to have fun.
Yeah. Because there could be somebody out there that is already kind of started doing what you're doing but doesn't have the time or has extra land, because some people have masses of land that it's growing wild anyway, so and it wouldn't do them any harm to donate that, because if you've got $1 million, what's 10 grand kind of thing,
absolutely. Exactly. Yeah
a lot more aware people. It's been wonderful talking to you,
and you. Thank you so much, Sue.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So anyway, I hope everybody's enjoyed listening to the future of EarthKin and what's going to be happening with that, and I know it's going to be very successful. It will take time, but it will get there. So anybody that would like to listen to Deb's previous interview, I'll put the link below, and also it's noted as a non-profit on the Soulfully Connecting website. But Debs is also, she's got a blog, and that's also valued author of ours, so that's also kind of on the website. But wishing you both the very best. It's been great talking to you. And so from Debs and Tom and myself, bye for now. Okay, thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye bye.